In this video help, I'm going to be covering some of the navigation buttons and other information. Before you start using this application, you should start in the video help by clicking this button, going to the video help screen, and taking all the videos. The videos are designed to tutorial each user in the ability to use this application and make sure that they have all the information before they start adding data. For example, if you are using the application, you can see there's many screens to work through, yet there are only a few primary screens like the customer data, the activity track, the property listing, and the property inspection. You notice that they're sort of color-coded to make it a little easier to find the information. And down at the very bottom, you'll see that there is a setup for some lists. Now we're going to be going through this information in detail as a part of the actual tutorials. We're going to cover each one of these sections and in the subscreens that go, say for example, in the customer screen. In this application, when you're on the iPad and you're using the iPad version through FMGo, in order to leave FMGo and not lock the screen up, you use the log out button to log out of the current screen you're in. The same thing goes if you're working with this application on the server and you want to, say the cloud server, you would use this log out button to log out of the cloud server, and the same thing for Windows. On the iPad or iPhone, when you go ahead and leave in the iOS version of this application, it basically, when you use the logout, it will shut down the application so that you don't have to be looking at that screen any longer. Okay, so let's go ahead and take and navigate to the first thing after the calendar screen. Basically, we're going to be doing these in the order basically of the main groups is what I'm going to do. In this case, I'm going to go to the customer data screen. The customer data screen utilizes a thing called popovers, and what the popovers do is they pop up information just like you saw the application map so that you can see information, and then you just click anywhere off of it to close it. The next thing you'll see on this screen is you'll notice that there's a do action. A do action is things that you can do within these screens, and this is on all the back end of the application which you're in right now. This is where you actually add the customer record information. There's also places in different screens where we'll be going to, for example, we'll be going to the inspection screens and also other screens that are related to and I'll show those in the drop-down list up here as we go through them. And then when you're in those screens, say for example, you want to do some information as far as looking up stuff, what I've done is I put the two fields that you can actually look up for in here, but I've actually, in this particular screen, made it even simpler. If you click on this button up here, it'll give you a list view of all the clients that are currently added into your database, and then you can use the find on those screens where you click on the find record and then you put in some data, like I'd put in either the 3 or the person's name, and what it would do when you click perform the find, it will find that particular record. When you get done doing the find and using the information, you would click show all, and show all would bring all the records back. When you do a find, what you're doing is you're creating a selection of records, and that's what it's called, records in selection. And when you look at a list view after you've done a find, you may see the records only that are in the current selection. So if you're looking at that screen and for some reason it doesn't look like you have all the records, click show all, and what it'll do is it'll bring back all the records in the list view. So for example, if I went over to the list view now, I see these records. If I go back to the customer data and then I do a find, let's go ahead and do it. We're going to say find, flips over. You go ahead and put in this case, say like I'll put in pick the record that I want to work with. In this case, I'm not even going to be able to add these in here because they're actually locked on this screen. But what I would do is I'd go ahead and find some data that was available, and then I would go ahead and put in the information. In this case, I can come over to this screen and I can add anything I want because this is an individual record. So I can go ahead and add it. Say, for example, I wanted to put the client's name in there. So I'm going to say I'm going to find Vaughn, V-A-U. And just so that I don't have to go through the whole list, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the keyboard. I'm going to close the screen here, and I'm going to say do find, perform the find, and what it did is it found one record of a set of 3. It put my record name and number in there, and it has the number of the record for the ID of that particular client. Okay, as you add new clients, this number will sequence up by 1 each time you add a new client, and then that ID can be used if you're doing a search like we just did in the customer data. Now, I've made it really simple on this screen. All you have to do is click here and pick from this list. For example, if I wanted to go to Mary Smith, you'd see it go to Mary Smith. If I go back up here now, all the records have been returned. I can also go to Mary Smith's record from here. I go click on this little button at the end of the record, and it goes back into Mary Smith again. She's number one as far as the ID is concerned. And like I said, I can either click here to go to the list view, and or I can come up here and I can say go into the client data list view from here. It'll take me to the list view. Now we're going to talk about the pop-ups and show you information that's in there. We already showed you can pick a record from here by either clicking here or on there. The numbers will be out of sequence, but the names are in alphabetical order to make it easier to find them. As soon as you add about 28 records in here, then you can scroll through this, or you can go right to the list view. But currently it's actually kind of fast to be able to just pop in there and move through the different screens as you want to. Now the record information that's currently in the records, I think there's 4 records. So there's 4 records. What you can do is when you receive this application, you can go into the record and pick one of the things. I'll pick number 1 in Mary Smith, and then I go to customer data, and I can replace the information that's currently in here with the information for that client. This is called overriding, and basically you would just overwrite all the information, and then you would complete the information that is in here that is pertinent. Maybe you want to add a picture, a photo of maybe the residence for the person or the person's face in here so you recognize them when they walk in the door. Okay, so let's go over, we're going to be going through each one of these in order. Now we already talked about the customer and the customer data, and we're going to go through each one of these in this video. If you need help in any one screen, you can click the support site and it will take you to our developer's website. If you needed to change the customer status, you can click up here. Now I showed you in the last video, which was for the calendar, that you can add whatever this kind of client is. Now when you're creating a new record, virtually the person is either a buyer or a seller, or there's a specific reason why you have a client and there is a broker or whatever. In this case, you could put new client as far as the status and then change the status as things change. But when you're looking at the kind of person, let's talk about the type. The type is one of these: a buyer, a seller, an agent, a broker, a bank, escrow, a contractor, a builder, or in this case, I could edit values and add additional ones if you need it in there. Say, for example, you need this, but you need it for doing management of properties. Maybe you have inspections that you do that are related to each time a tenant moves out and you need to have the rental or whatever it is managed. In this case, if you're going to be doing rental management, it would be ideal that you go ahead and edit the values in this list and then add that to that list. Let's go ahead and just pop it up while we're here and show you how you would edit it. Just go ahead and click in Edit Values. A dialog will pop up and you add them in there as far as whatever you want. You can copy and paste in an order if you want to put them in order. I did them kind of logically based on what you would probably use the most, and then down to the bottom. Then you save your changes, and that will be added to your list. Okay, now as far as the next thing as we leave here, let's go ahead and go down. This is called the primary contact field, and the primary contact field is saved for either both spouses as far as their names and stuff, or if it's a single individual, you can put the single individual person in there. But the person you would normally contact in this particular case, you would put in the primary client name here, their address information, their email, their phone, and then on the spouse's side down here, the spouse's name. In this case, it'd be Mary Smith. In this case, she's got John over here as a secondary, so we put in John and his email. This is all the primary and secondary as far as the spouse is concerned, and the spouse's employer and phone number at their job. This is important if they're a seller or a buyer, because you need to contact these people during the process of either a buyout or a sale of a property or a listing or an inspection. You need all those kinds of fields here to be able to contact somebody and know their situation and what they are. In this particular case, we're saying that this person is a broker. So Mary Smith is a broker. Now I put her in there as a contact, and I might be contacting the broker for a reason, or a I might have a title company person in here or whatever. In that particular case, I wouldn't need the spouse information. I would only need the person and their contact information in case I needed to get hold of a broker or of an inspection company and so forth. So this gives you the ability to contact just about anybody in your group. Now, down here for property information, you take some notes. For example, single dwelling, one story, contemporary or modern American or whatever it might be, and basic information. So if you look at this and it's an actual seller or a buyer, in the case of a buyer, if they're looking for a particular property, you would take the information they're looking for and whatever other notes are responsible for you to keep as far as the CRM is concerned. I moved it up a little bit so you can see that there is a scroll area so you can have as much data in here if you want to. So it gives you the ability under CRM, Customer Relationship Management, to really understand your users. Okay, the next thing, say for example, this person up here is the seller or the buyer, but they also have a lawyer or a daughter or a son or whatever, and they want those people to be available to have information about them. Well, in that particular case, this is a sales agent, sales broker, and so forth. But if this was an individual buyer or seller, they may want you to contact somebody else. Say, for example, they have a certain agent at a bank where they've got pre-approved, and you'd want to have that in there in the related contacts and the information. And if you click on a portal record, you would have all the information in areas over here to add information about that particular record for that person. In this case, I've got a couple of E's in there, and I'm going to take those out. Basically, if you want to go back to that row item, you can click on this button. If for some reason the person that you actually had in there as a contact is no longer required to be there, you can click the delete button and get rid of that. If you're sending out information and you're going to use a number 10 envelope, for example, you could put the information for the header for the envelope return address and information and go ahead and click on this. It'll take you to a screen so you can print the envelope so that it'll print within your printer if you have that capacity within your printer. So up here, this is just the repeat information for the data for this particular record. There's an exception on this area down here, and you saw this on the calendar, the first video, where you have the calendar list and the date of a birthday, a anniversary, and the anniversary list. There's actually list views with all the people for all the birthdays that may be coming up in a week period or a month or whatever, where you want to actually look up who has a birthday in that particular area in that particular time, in case you want to send out an envelope with something in it wishing them a happy birthday or anniversary. So let's go back over and look in that screen back here where we were working. We're in Mary Smith's record, and I want to change. I'm going to go back to me because I have a lot more information in my record. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say, okay, customer data, and then the related field records. This is the area we were just in, where you can have the birthday list, the anniversary, and inspection list. And these give you the running list tutorial as far as who is out there that you need to address. And of course, all the contacts that we're going to be having in here for related contacts. The next one is a really simple screen. It uses the address for the primary person in here. And what it does is it pops up a map so that if you have access, say like on an iPhone, and you want to do turn by turn to go to their house, you could use this information here. And of course, if you log in to the maps, it'll give you the ability to do those kind of things. For example, you can come over here and tap on this and sign in, or you can look at traffic and terrain and all that kind of stuff in the map itself on the actual listing. And of course, if you want to get rid of this thing over here, you can go ahead and click this. It'll move this off the screen out of the way so that you can add another thing. And of course, you can navigate around the screen this way. Or if you're actually logged in, you're going to get that little man that's on there, the little yellow man, and you can pull it up and put him over here. You can actually get a live view of this particular screen. And if you click on this, it will also give you live view if you're not logged in, so you can actually see. And this particular picture is my house, and it's probably 16 years ago when they took these pictures, so it's quite a bit overgrown now with large trees and everything now in it. So it's had a lot of changes over the years. To get back, you basically click on the arrow over here to come back. And if you want to leave this, just click on any area out here in the white. It could be above or below, but click that and it goes away. User-defined fields. let me tell you how this actually originated. I get a lot of my new development ideas for applications from my users. My users said, well, I didn't have the ability to have a field that I really needed here. I needed one that said what all the kids are in the family. And I didn't want to have related contacts. I just wanted to put something up here about them or whatever. There might be some information. So there's a title field here and then an input field. And when you click on it, the keyboard should pop up. And you will be allowed to go ahead and manage the information in that field. And of course, you get all the standard things down here that you normally work with. You have 3 wide and as many infinitely records as you want to put in here. Each one of these could be a different piece of information. If you wanted to keep in rows basically in line, maybe you want to do things that are specific to one family member or 2 or 3 family members, or you can just keep doing whatever you want. But this gives you the ability to modify and manage information. As far as CRM is, this is really a valuable thing to have in here. And if you go to the portal record for this particular thing, these are called user-defined fields, as you see up here. You can add the field, or you can go to the portal for that from the navigation list to the portal. Then you can search on any of these, and if they're relevant for either the title or the area in here, all records with the same information in them would all be shown, so you can go through those and browse them. There may be information that's specific to a certain kind of a client that you wanted to keep in there. Maybe they're a renter, and or if you're doing management, they'd be periodically coming back to use that particular dwelling as far as making reservations for it. So this information is all pertinent for those kinds of fields. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is property showing. Now, obviously this would be a buyer that was looking for a piece of property. And when you come to this screen, what you can do is you can pick what property is out there, and there could be an infinite list, and they're alphanumeric or numeric alpha as far as the way they're added in here based on the actual numeric address. So you could pick the property. When you click on it, it adds it to the field and adds the relevant information to this field. Then on the other side, the shower information is in here. This is an actual appointment. Now, if you're making an appointment here, you can pop out to the advanced calendar and then put that in your calendar list of important items and appointments. And you can also have it here. You'll find the reason we put the advanced calendar in, it is very, not difficult, but much more difficult to try to find something within all the records within one of the records for a showing, when you can jump out and put it into the actual scheduled showings on the calendar. It makes it really easy because it's day to day to day and week and month. So you can see all, not only the ones that are in here, but the ones you've completed over a period of time and how many times you've actually shown that property. The little underlines in here make it a little difficult to read this, but there's actually, if you click on these, in some cases they actually have another screen tied to them. In this case, they don't in this particular one. I get used to doing different applications. I can't remember whatever ones I did, but I think I marked these in this particular application to make it easier to see them, to identify them as the header for a field as opposed to just random information that's on the screen. Now, you can make an appointment, and it takes both of these fields to do this for this portal. What you would do is you would go ahead and add the data for the property itself, the city, the town, and the state, the zip, and all the other information, and then you would have a detailed description of information that you want to have for that particular client and what you're doing. And this is the field for the appointment for showing notes about the actual showing of this property. So, for example, maybe you've shown this 10 times and you have little things you want to put in there about what you did the last time you showed this property. That way you can come back and do a search on this particular field in the portal and find the information for every time you've shown this. If you showed this property 10 times, you'd have all the information related to this each time you showed that property. And you may want to change your presentation if you need to as far as the information. Maybe you didn't give enough information or you gave too much. And depending upon the buyer that's looking for that property, you're going to want to be able to provide them the right information. There is a clickable here to show the listing of all the appointments that are coming up for showing. And if the property price has been reduced, it'll show here because the property itself has all the information. In this case, those fields were not filled in, so just to conserve a little space. And so for that reason, you don't have all the data here. Now, to create a new listing, say this is a new buyer, and they're looking for a property, pardon me, they're a seller, and they're looking to sell a piece of property, clicking this particular button will take you to the listing screen so you can create a new listing. It's kind of a shortcut. When you're sitting in here, you maybe want to go ahead and just pop over and add a new listing. Let's go ahead and click over here, add a site. We did property showings. The next one we're going to do, and this is kind of interesting, this is part of the CRM. Basically what happens is people promise or give advice or do whatever they do to their clients. This could be a buyer, a seller, an agent, or whatever it might be, a broker. Or brokers have given you information, or an agent has given you information on a particular property or whatever, in this case, about this buyer or whatever. That information is considered activity information. Things that you've discussed with a client, for example, on the activity date, activity time, activity type. In this case, you're going to look in here and there's going to be, you could add different things in there as far as inserting values and stuff as far as that field is concerned. For activity status, we go ahead and add that information in there. Activity location and place, maybe you're at a dwelling or you're in the office, and then you put the narrative in here that's related to that. If it's something where you want to ensure that the client remembers it, you have the option to click on this icon and actually have a printable area here that was related to the activity on the date and time and all the information. And say, for example, you want to email this to them. If you're on an iPad or an iPhone, you have a printer, or you can send this as a PDF to a client within an email. You have that option to do that. You can go ahead and send that information out to the client. In this case, if I wanted to go back, we call this a hot button because it goes right back to where you were at. Clicking on that takes you right back to the client information screen. Now you have in here, we did the activity track, and then you have a meeting track. And this is something that you're scheduling. So this again is related to your calendar information, and you want to be able to have this client understand when you have an event that you need to add to the calendar. You would go ahead and put it in here so that you could have that information. And again, you can create as many of these as you have to in a portal. And then if you want to see the individual thing again like we did before, you can see in here we've got the date, the time of the meeting, the location, the meeting agenda. These are items that you want to cover. You can put a number in front of them if you wanted to make sure, like cover number 1 through whatever. And then the meeting attendees, could be the seller, the agent, the spouse, or whoever, how you want to put that in there. And then the meeting notes. The meeting notes are things that either were brought up and need to be addressed as far as action items and different kinds of things that you have to be aware of to go back and make sure that they happen. And then you can also enter those into your calendar, your advanced calendar, as things that you have to complete for that particular property or that person to make sure that they occur. In that particular case may be something where maybe you have to pick up keys to get into something because it does not have a lockbox on the thing, so you might have to go to another agent to get the keys or whatever. So you have that information in here whenever you need it to manage that particular meeting and portal thing. Now, since these are meetings, let's show over here that we have a meeting printout. So if we have meeting agenda, notes, and who attended, you could send this to either an agent, a broker, or the person that was related to the actual property. In this particular case, is the person that is listed up here is the primary contact and the contact's name. And that information then could be emailed to them as a PDF if you need to. Okay, so let's go back over here and go back to the customer calendar area. Now, I'm going to recap a little bit for these screens, and I'm going to show you on the application map that we did take care of all the items that are kind of a silver gray here. So we've covered everything, and we didn't have to go to each portal, but you can. The related contacts portal and the customer UDF portal where you can do individual finds and then the related contact field up here. Or you can look at the individual list views. This would be the customer contact list views or the actual primary client data list view. So let's go ahead and take a look before we leave at the customer contact list view. And these are the contacts listed for importance as far as people that you need to be aware of and their basic information. And if you wanted to, you could do a find, come over here and say start a find, and pick a certain family. In this case, this guy's a seller, and you can do it by the individual, or in the case of when we come over here, you can pop back into the individual records if you want to, and it would take you back over here where you could select to go to the portal or just take that information from that particular primary client information. One of the things I want to point out here that this is a client area that has a new record button. When you come into this area, the reason I'm saying this last is I showed you everything you need to know about this area and adding data and editing data, but you should, in this screen, create a new record when you have a new client. Now, this is not to say that you would not have a client that was selling something and a year later they came back. That would require you to create another new record for that particular client and of course the ID would be different, and that way you would know, say for example, he's buying a new house or selling a new house. In this particular case, maybe you have a person that has a lot of property that they're managing and they want you to buy and sell property for them. You can have a number of records that are related to the specific property based on the ID for that particular property. So you'd be creating a lot of new records even though it's for the same client. It would be a different ID number for each different client for different properties that they're picking up. And of course the data within that would be for those individual properties that you're working with. Now you can always go back and look at the prior information for a different property that you worked and listed and did stuff so that you would have that information available to you. Over on the other side of the screen you can see that you've got an area over here that you can, for example, if you needed to do a find and you were looking for, say there's 1,000 records in here and you know that this guy is either number 62 or whatever it is, you could start a find and then go right in there. Now, one of the other things I haven't shown you, and this pertains to all screens, is you can navigate between the screens using these buttons. You can exit the application from within any screen and leave, like we did on the calendar screen that had a log out button. This would give you the ability to use this to log out again. And then as you go down through here, you'll see that there's also an export record. Now you can export from an iPad or an iPhone, but you cannot import into them. But if you're on a Mac or Windows or a cloud machine, you can do that from those other areas. The iPad is not robust enough to do things like importing, but it can export items. Video help is obviously a button on every screen. You can go there or use the tech support button to go to our developer's website. Okay, so let's go to the next group in the next video. We're going to be looking at activity. We already did these. We're going to go to property listing. Property listing is where we're going to go next. Thank you.